For Wet Lab 3, we are going to be finding the mass percent and density of a mixture. So we are going to make a mixture of salt and sand, and from there we are going to find the mass percent. The mass percent is a measurement that compares the mass of one component. In this case, for the lab, we're going to be looking at sodium chloride or salt and compare it to the overall mass of our mixture or solution. Okay? We are also going to be finding density. So density is the mass divided by the volume. We're going to make several different known amounts of salt solution. So we're going to weigh out different amounts of salt, add it to water in order to make something called a calibration curve. So a calibration curve, we can plot one quantity and a second quantity and see the relationship between them. So in this lab, we're going to plot the mass percent of our salt versus the density of our salt to find a linear relationship between the two. So for this lab, you are going to have to make your own unknown solution. So in order to do that, we want to take a 25 milliliter graduated cylinder. Okay. We're going to tare the cylinder and add about 10 grams of salt. So we're going to add about 10 grams to our graduated cylinder and weigh it again. Okay. Once we have our 10 grams, that is going to be the salt portion, and you want to record the mass and include it. You're going to need it in your Excel sheet. There is also on the last page, a data collection so you can report the amount of salt that you're using. Okay. So record that amount, okay, and we're going to use that in order to make our unknown solution. We are also going to be using sand, and the exact amount isn't essential, but you want to add about 5 milliliters of sand to your graduated cylinder. Okay. Got a little carried away there. Okay. The exact amount again isn't essential, but we are going to record the weight of the sand that we're adding into our unknown. By mixing these two substances, okay, I'm going to mix them together. This is going to be the unknown that we're measuring in our sample. Okay. So now that concludes making our unknown. We want it mixed, the salt and the sand. Okay. For part A, we're now going to weigh the mass of an empty, clean, graduated cylinder. So let me tare the balance. Okay. We'll get the mass, and we want to record that mass in the on the report form so that you can use it in Excel. Okay. And we are going to take the mass of a container, an empty container, and record the mass of that container. I do find it helpful to label all of the containers so we know what they contain. Okay. So we're going to place all of the unknown, that mixed unknown that you made. If you can transfer it into that container and then record the mass of the mixture of salt and sand. Okay. Now we want a second container that we're going to filter into. So a second container, unknown salt or sand, and it's pretty helpful if the opening of your container is smaller than the funnel that you're going to use, because then it sits right onto that container and you don't have to hold it. Okay, so we want the mass of this second container, and you want to record that. Okay. And we're going to get 10 milliliters of water in our graduated cylinder. So we get 10 milliliters of water. Okay. We're adding it into our unknown and stirring it well. So our goal is to make this separation. We're going to dissolve the salt into the water. The sand is going to be left behind because it does not dissolve. And we're going to filter the salt water away from the sand. Okay. So you want to mix that for 2 minutes. So we're going to take our second container that we weighed. We're going to put our funnel in it. And now we need to use our filter paper. In order to use the filter paper, you want to fold it in half. Okay. Fold it in half again. And by doing that, you want to open it so that there's 3 sides, 3 sections of the filter paper on one side and 1 section on the other. So what that does is it doesn't allow any of the extra sand to sneak through into our container. Now it may not want to sit well into your funnel, so if you take a little bit of water onto that filter paper and just wet it, then it will sit much nicer down into your funnel. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to take that mixture or that water that you've added to your unknown and mixed for 2 minutes, and we're going to filter the liquid away from the solid. So we want to pour the liquid into the funnel, and it'll filter much faster if you do the liquid first before transferring the solid. Yeah, and so you'll let it filter through until you have removed all of the liquid from the solid. Then you can transfer the sand down into the filter paper as well. And our goal is to remove all of the salt down into our second container. And this does take a little bit of time. Okay, once you have, and you wait patiently for that liquid to filter through, you can transfer that sand down into that filter paper in the funnel. Now there may be some sand left in the bottom of your container. You want to try and scrape out as much as you can. Okay, and we're going to take about 5 milliliters of water, and we're going to rinse that container to make sure that we've removed all of the salt out of that original container. So you want to pour it in, swirl it around. Hopefully you've done a better job of removing the sand than I have. You've taken a little more time. And then you've waited for the liquid to completely leave the funnel and transfer all of that down into the funnel. And again, you do want to be a little patient so that you do a good job with this part of the experiment. Okay. Once it has completely filtered, you're going to want to weigh this liquid that has come through the filter paper and record that amount on your report form. Okay. We're also going to pour 8 to 10 milliliters of our salt solution into our graduated cylinder and record the exact volume and the weight. Okay. So you want to record the exact volume off of the graduated cylinder. We're going to record the mass of the graduated cylinder, and that way we can find the density of our unknown solution, which we'll be using with our calibration curve in order to figure out the percent mass. For step B, we are going to make the solutions for our calibration curve. Okay. So we want to start, and again, it's a good idea to label cups. We're going to make a solution that has 0 grams of sodium chloride. We're going to make a solution that has 0.75 grams, about 1.75 grams, and about 2.5 grams of sodium chloride. So the very first one, where we have no sodium chloride, we are going to not have to weigh out any salt, but we do want to measure out about 10 milliliters of water. Okay. About 10 milliliters of water. And we want to weigh, make sure the outside of the cylinder is dry. And we want to weigh the cylinder with water and record the mass in table 1. So we've got 2 different tables we're going to be filling out. So table 1, the amount of NaCl is 0 grams. We want the mass of the water and the graduated cylinder recorded. Okay. Next, we're going to weigh out the salt. So we want to use our cup that says 0.75. So we can put that on the balance. We can hit the tare button. And then we're going to weigh out about 0.75 grams of salt. The exact amount is not essential, just that it's near 0.75 grams, and then record the exact mass that you weigh out in the table. Okay. All right. We're going to fill our graduated cylinder with 10 milliliters of clean water. And we're going to add it into our 0.75 grams of water. Yeah, and make sure that it dissolves. Okay. Then we're going to do the exact same thing, adding about 0.175 grams. And adding 10 milliliters of water, adding about 2.5 grams and 10 milliliters of water, making sure that each one of those solutions dissolves. Okay. Now we're going to find the density. So we're going to be using table 2. Okay. So we're going to find our density. We're going to, those solutions that we made, so our 0 milliliters, the 0.75 milliliters, each one of those solutions, we're going to find the density. So you want your clean, dry, graduated cylinder. We're going to pour our solution that we made with the salt water. So you start with 0 grams of NaCl. We want to pour that in. We want to record the volume accurately using the measurements on the graduated cylinder. There's balance to say 0. And then we're going to record the mass so that we can subtract off our graduated cylinder, find the mass of just the liquid, mass divided by volume, we can find our density. To clean up after you're done, all of the salt water can go down the drain. The sand and filter paper can be put into the garbage. Okay. Also, make sure that you are wearing your safety goggles through this entire procedure. If at any point you have any questions about how to carry out this procedure, please don't hesitate to reach out.